Hopefully everyone can hear me. So welcome everyone to the Tibetan Buddhist Society. It's good to see people coming in, and particularly when the wind is showing its presence so forcibly. You can't hear? So you're lip reading? No. Okay, all right. I'll try and speak a bit louder, okay? And just if I get a little bit soft, just put your hand up and I'll pick up your body language, okay? So it's good to see everybody here on such a windy day, and particularly as the weather has not been very kind in terms of the sun's been hidden somewhere. So before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the spiritual founder of the Tibetan Buddhist Society, Geshe Acharya Thubten Loden, for establishing the centre, this temple, and also the books that he's written, which are his legacy. And one of the many books is Meditations to the Path to Enlightenment, which we're going to use for this particular 4 weeks of introductory series. So in the first few chapters, or the first half part of the book, we're going to cover things like the purpose of meditation, why meditation is so transformative, the mind, what is the mind, and other subjects like briefly touching on Guru Yoga and the enormous benefit of being born a human being and all the logic and reasoning behind that. In week 2, we'll cover death and impermanence, but a necessary subject, beyond death. So as you know, Buddhists believe in rebirth, and therefore we talk about what happens at the end of this life and what are the possibilities of a future life. And then things like taking refuge and explaining what is taking refuge in Buddhism. Week 3, aspiring to liberation. So how do we really finally get rid of all the things in our lives that are causing us to have suffering, and how do we then flourish in happiness for ourselves and others? And the things like true suffering, what are the true sufferings? What causes us to suffer? And you will be introduced to subjects like delusions, karma, imprints. And week 4 will be the 12 dependent links, which really show clearly, and one of the most profound Buddhist teachings in terms of how do we create our happiness? How do we create our suffering? And we finish off with the path to liberation. After that, Venerable Anna Goldstein will be here on term 4, and she'll cover things like love, compassion, bodhicitta, and the 6 perfections, which are very profound in Buddhist practice. And the 6 perfections that we all aspire to is generosity of our time and money, ethics, which is the main cause to be born as a human being, patience, joyous effort, having joy in what we do, the ability to concentrate, and then develop the true wisdom that gives us a lot of happiness and happiness to others. So we'll also do a very brief meditation to settle the mind and body in the beginning, but then do a more extensive meditation when we explain, well, what is meditation? Because at the moment, sometimes we see meditation based on music. Well, the meditation we'll be exploring is not based on any external stimuli like music, although music is very good to settle the mind in a very, when you've been very agitated, and also when you've had trauma. That's has its benefits. And we'll finish off with a traditional Buddhist meditation time provided. Okay, so in terms of just settling the mind, we'll have a very brief awareness of body. So if you settle your body in a comfortable position first, make sure that your back is straight. The reason why we have a straight back is to ensure that the energy flows freely. The energy that's found near the spine and maintains alertness. And then we scan the body for any tightness or where you may hold the tightness the most. Sometimes the tightness is in the eyes. Allow the eyes to loosen and become soft. Sometimes it's in the jaw. Loosen the jaw down to the shoulders, down to the arms and hands, back straight. Legs, ankles, feet. And then we gather our attention to the breath. Wherever you feel the breath the most. Rising and falling of the chest. Or at the nostrils. Or back of the throat. Just bring your mind to the breath. And feel the breath filling your entire body. Your entire body with a gentle flow. And maintain the attention on your breath. As a space within and around your body. It's filled with peace, calm, and an awareness. Just maintain that awareness, the clear and knowing awareness of mind and consciousness. A groundedness in awareness, a groundedness in calm. So now when you are ready, you may end the meditation and open your eyes. Okay. So on the 27th of December 2016, a person attending His Holiness the Dalai Lama's public teachings in Delhi asked His Holiness the following question. In this world, we see so much pain and suffering. Can one be happy every day? Now that question we'll refer to throughout the next 1.5 hours, and we'll analyse it in more detail with the response from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So the first thing we ask, was this person reacting to something, or were they responding to something? So what is reacting? Well, reacting is an instant, spontaneous, unconscious reaction driven by emotion. It is survival orientated and at one level a defense mechanism. So people who have outbursts of emotions invariably do regret it later, sometimes an hour, a week, sometimes months later when they reflect on their behaviour. A response, on the other hand, is much more slower. It comes from a level of understanding and information and intelligence. It thinks beforehand and then responds accordingly. So they're the two polar opposites in our lives. So how do we take hold of this reacting? Why do we react like the way we do? Habit is the answer. It's just a habit that you've had for a while, that nobody has brought it to your attention, or you may not be aware of the habits of reacting until there's certain major events in your life, or there's something that creates a foundation for you that says, hey, you're reacting. And if you look at workplaces, there's a whole stream of workplace rules and regulations that govern your behaviour. So to comply, you follow those behaviours. But if you have a propensity to react or to behave in a certain way, those behaviours and reactions are best bridled at work, and they manifest elsewhere in your social settings and family. Take, for example, in the workplace, where you have unconscious bias training. That's starting to hit all workplaces now. And unconscious bias brings us an awareness of our biases when we make decisions, when we hire people, and how we treat others. So the training in unconscious bias is a foundation that says, oh, I can compare my behaviour to this foundation of teaching. Okay, it's in the workplace. Let's explore it further. But exploring your own mind and your thinking requires courage and truth and honesty and a constant reflection and a willingness to look at oneself in a whole new way of thinking. So the Buddha understood that unconscious bias is a form of placing people as enemies, friends, and strangers. The person who places people as enemies, friends, and strangers are really focusing on one person, themselves. What gives them happiness and aversion to what gives them unhappiness. So people who have unconscious bias are really, to some degree, have a conscious bias. They're aware of their behaviors and their actions. And this is where the Buddha introduces self-cherishing. When we look at our actions and really delve deeply into our minds and our consciousness and our behaviors, you can see that that is a common thing in our lives. Every one of us is so unconscious. So the Buddha taught equanimity, which means equanimity is you accept everyone equally, no matter where they're from, their background, and the way they talk, their intelligence. It is a beautiful, wonderful practice that the Buddha introduced to help reduce the suffering, because ultimately somebody who is unconsciously biased or consciously biased is harming others. Because you may recruit somebody that has better skills and would be far more beneficial for the organisation, but because they look like you get on well with them, they fit the team, you don't hire them. So it's no longer you in the picture, it's everyone else in the company that could have benefited from it. So that's the essence of our behaviour and the willingness of us to have a look at ourselves and also apply the Buddha's teaching of equanimity. And people who practice equanimity are easy to get on with. You feel safe in their space, and there's something about them that you know that you can trust. Most people can pick up intuitively when they're being judged. Most people. So you may have intuitively an uncomfortable feeling. So I wonder why I feel a bit uncomfortable with this person here. Well, it could be that you're picking up that they're being judgmental against you. The Buddha taught that this is prolific around in society. So will you respond to that person? Will you lose your confidence? These are the questions in terms of establishing where is our happiness and where is our source of happiness. So equanimity, as mentioned, is an antidote to the behaviours of classifying everyone as enemies, friends and strangers. And we cultivate more and more virtuous minds. So more and more virtuous minds bring a lot of peace to yourself and bring a lot of peace to others. Non-virtuous states of mind like hate, anger and jealousy cause much harm to yourself. Because if you are angry, if you are jealous, if you gossip, you're creating imprints on your mental consciousness that will ripe upon you for having those imprints. That's very conclusive in the Buddhism. You create the causes, you will experience the results. In terms of virtuous and non-virtuous behaviours, we'll discuss later when we look at death and impermanence and beyond death, how important those virtuous and non-virtuous behaviours are and how they can cast you into particular rebirths. So what is mind and why is meditation so transformative? The Buddha taught that mind is the source of all suffering and presented teachings that help us to identify and reduce these causes and increase happiness. Therefore, when you study Buddhism, you are actually studying yourself, the nature of your body, speech and mind, with the main emphasis on being on the nature of your mind and how it works in everyday life. So meditation opens you to the world of your mind and, of course, your thoughts. You discover more and more of the nature and the pervasiveness of the mind, and you will come to realise that there is, in fact, no other world but that of mind. The mind in one moment can be unhappy, sad, upset, agitated. In the next moment, it can be happy, joyous, and capable of the most beautiful, everlasting love and compassion that benefits others. So what is mind? Well, mind is changeable, as we know. Very changeable, and it can react regularly to the events in our life. So the fact that mind is changeable is a positive thing to embrace and hold within you as something to look forward to, because the very basis of mind, the very basis of consciousness, is a clear and knowing consciousness. Those thoughts come in, those behaviors come in, and then they go. So if they come and go, does that mean that we can do something with them? Yes, we certainly can. So the supreme purpose for practicing of meditation is to permanently and completely eliminate all suffering and sources of suffering from within the mind, and to empower the pure mind to be able to gain enlightenment. We'll take that note of pure mind. So in Buddhism, everyone has Buddha nature, every one of us. And in that Buddha nature is what makes the commonality between us all. We've got the potential within us. We're born with that potential. We don't have a sin that we need to purify. The habits are causing us to be the way that we are, to experience suffering and to experience happiness. So how can we reduce suffering and experience more happiness? Because the world around us is still going to be the same. Anyone that experiences perhaps a major event in their life will know that the moment you open the door and have a look outside, the sun is still shining. People are walking their dogs. People are going out and do exercises. The retail shops are opened. Schools are on. Traffic on the road. You can close the door, but the world is still there. So do you keep the door closed? Or do you open it and walk through the door? Although listening to the Buddha's teachings, they do stimulate thinking and improve states of mind, meditation brings the experience of these minds to a fruition and conceptual at emotional and intuitive and physiological levels. So there's one form of meditation that relaxes the mind and the body, and there's other forms where you imbue new information and new knowledge. So a bit of terminology in terms of the Buddhism and meditation, you'll hear regularly the words subject, object. And what that means is that here I am as a subject. Through all my perceptions, I see objects in this room. I look outside and I see objects that look like flowing things. They're moving around. But somebody taught me that that's tree. They're trees. When you feel your body moving around in the strong winds that we have today, your mind says, oh yes, this is the wind. This is the wind moving around. So I am the subject, but I'm the subject by my senses and what I see, what I hear, what I taste, what I feel in terms of structures, things that are solid, things that are not solid, and of course my consciousness, my discrimination. So I may say purple or maroon. That's a nice colour because it reminds me of this. Blue, not a nice colour, reminds me of that. So you have all these different reactions, but the blue is the blue on its own. It's an object that we're looking at. it's through our senses that we actually provide it with a label. So you'll hear the word subject-object. So when we look at meditating on a virtuous object like peace, we'll use the term objects. So it's what engages the mind. What are you trying to cultivate? It's very similar to when you're studying at your text, when you have to perhaps do some training, some mandatory training. Fire is an example where you really do have to know what to do in case there's a fire. So you imbue that knowledge, you study it, you see it with your eyes. You may hear it if it's an audio sound, you may hear it. You may even write it down and visualize some of the various objects in that training, and then you imbue it. So when it's called upon, you'll know unconsciously and consciously what to do. So meditation in Buddhism is in two categories. You have your single-pointed concentration, and then you have on the other side your analytical concentration. In the single-pointed concentration, we did that first off, where we brought the mind, we gathered the senses, brought the mind as much as we could to the body. So single-pointed concentration is good when you're really having a busy day and there's a lot going on around you, there's a lot of emotions hanging and you've got to make decisions fast. You may take a break somewhere and just single-pointedly focus on just calming all the breathing in the body to ground yourself, and then get back to what you were doing. So single-pointed concentration is used in step 1 of meditation to bring everything in, to calm the body, to find where you are in your natural state. Every one of us has a natural position where we feel the most comfortable in. That's the purpose of the single-pointed concentration. The next thing is bringing an object into your sphere of consciousness and looking at what is that object, analyzing it so comprehensively that you get it. And it can only happen when you're analyzing it. So the Buddha said that friends, enemies, and strangers create non-virtuous. And then you might say, well, I see it and I felt unconscious bias. I have been discriminated against. I understand that. Then you see then you might go more global and looking at events in this world and say, yes, this is happening. It causes suffering. And then the Buddha says, if we do that, this is going to be the effect in years to come. Yep, I get it. I got it. I'm going to make a commitment to treat everyone as equally as I possibly can. And then you start to feel it. You're learning about this. You're learning and you feel it, and it becomes more and more and more part of you. But if you just do it once and put it aside, it's not going to have a long-term effect. If you keep looking at it every day and being aware of it on and off the cushion, on and off the chair, you can see it. What you look for, you find. In the NLP community, we call it reticular activation system, where if you're looking for a red car, you'll find a red car. If one is through the process of trying to have a family, you'll spot all the pregnant women. If somebody is feeling not well and they feel a little bit discriminated against, you'll find discrimination everywhere. That's how pervasive the mind is. Or if someone was mean and nasty to you, whenever that person appears, you don't trust them. You distance. You have that pervasive mind of remembering somewhere in the past they've done this to you, and you miss the details of when the person changes. Anyone that's raised children know that children change every minute of the day. And as a parent, your job is to make sure that they are raised in a safe and protective way that makes them valuable to the community and people around them as best as you can. So when we get stuck in our consciousness and our objects, generic objects, it can mar what we see. It can cause like a veil of what we see. So this produces happiness and sadness at the same time. So that's the purpose of analytical and single-pointed concentration. So once we stabilize the mind with single-pointed concentration, we then analyze what we're trying to understand. Very similar to when you're studying too. You need to go into studying, into lectures where you're not agitated and stressed, particularly if you're late because the lecture would have already started. So relax the body, focus on the subject matter, the PowerPoint, whatever you're looking at, if it's online training, and then imbue the subject. And once you fully comprehend the subject clearly to the mind, so you're learning, developing the experience of what the Buddha taught in terms of calmness and patience and equanimity, then single-pointed concentration comes back in, you hold the object. So if you wish to cultivate more patience, you'll study the downside to anger, what it felt like receiving the anger, what it felt like when you were angry, what it feels like when someone's kind to you, how it made you feel, what it feels like when you receive kindness. You look at the world and see, is it full of kindness? What causes all the wars? And you see how the opposite of kindness really hurts and kills people. And you see people in your lives that don't understand you, perhaps, and are not kind because they won't even try and understand you. So there's a self and the world. And you may even feel it at an emotional level. What it was like when you received kindness, maybe from a stranger that gave you hope. And then when you refine that kindness, patience, understanding, awareness, you hold it. So when you go about your daily business, get into the car, hold on to that steering wheel, and you hear the car start, either by cranking the key or pressing a button. Somewhere in your subconscious is that peace and patience and kindness. And when you go encounter people that are not so nice, with the constant familiarization and meditation on patience, kindness, you realize that you can change. And if somebody might not be as nice, you've got the foundation for that kindness. And that's the imbuing and embodying new sources of knowledge. So we're going to do a meditation here, but there's a few things we're just going to go through in terms of meditation and as it relates to the Buddhist practice, is that first of all, it's very important to have your body in a comfortable position. And if it's not comfortable, move. There's nothing to say that you have to be a martyr and allow your body to go through the suffering. The second thing is, or the next thing is that we withdraw the senses into one single point of concentration. Now, the thoughts and your consciousness in your mind will not like that. When you're just trying to take the attention off their thoughts and bring it in, they will fight you like 2-year-olds, tantrums. So what they'll do is they'll come into your mind space. The thing is to look at them not as thoughts, push it away, or to look at it from a perspective of it's just a distraction. And the more you do this, the easier it will get. Initially, when we meditate, I think when I meditated for, tried 15 minutes, I had like 1 microsecond of no thought, but I still persevered. But that showed me, like when you put a limelight, oh wow, my voice, the chattering in my mind is just unbelievable. And they go at gross thoughts, subtle thoughts, and very subtle thoughts. So you may subdue the gross thoughts and the subtle thoughts come in, and then they come in, they sneak in through the back door. So we get used to the thoughts that come in. Hello, I'm here. You might say, hello. Not paying attention to me. But they'll slide out again. The thing about the thoughts and how they come in is they slide in, trying to get the attention, and then because they're not giving them attention and energy, they'll slide back out again. So it's important to look at your thoughts during meditation as a distraction rather than trying to push them away. And it's normal for when you're attempting to meditate that you might think of something that leads you to, like you might think, the colour green, that was good. Yeah, that reminds me of the beautiful palm trees in Hawaii. And then, I met that woman. She was not very good at the time. And I wonder why she ordered that drink. And it goes on and on and on and on. So the moment that you are aware that your concentration has gone for a field trip, just gently bring it back. Don't get annoyed with it. So in the meditation, we try and hold a point of like a guitar string, where the guitar string is not too tight and not too loose. So in some way, everything comes together, mind and body and breath and that calm and that stillness. So let's do meditation now. Find yourself in a comfortable position and let me know if you can you hear me in the back now? Yep, all good. So find yourself in a comfortable position where your back is straight. Could be sitting on the floor, chair, cushion. Or if you're at a hospital, you may be lying on your back. Or just wishing to experience this meditation lying on the floor. Allow your body to settle naturally. Be without restriction. And we'll commence with a body scan. Starting from the top of the crown of your head. Feel for any tightness, top of the head, forehead, going down the back of your head. Feel the eyes. Are they tense? Do they move with every thought? Allow your eyes to become soft. Facial muscles. Back of your ear, jaw. The neck, the shoulders. You may feel the shoulders slightly sinking, letting go of all the tension. Down the back. The arms. The hands. Feel the relaxing down the legs. Into your ankles, feet, each toe. Left foot, right foot. Joining in, calm, joining in, relaxing the body. Giving yourself a break. The demands of life. So observe your own mind, breathing, and your body. Feel the breath by the tip of your nostrils, back of your throat, or simply the rising, falling of the breath. Bring the mind, your attention, your awareness to the breath. And just feel how you're breathing. Notice how you are breathing. It's a shallow breath or a deep breath. And the more relaxed you become, do you notice that the breath changes? Keep focusing the mind on the breathing. In the moment you realize that a distraction has occurred, just gently, without force or aversion, gently, softly, elegantly bring the mind back to the breath. Feel the strength of your breath in quietness. And imagine the breath flowing freely within your body. You may even wish to give the breath a colour, any colour, building and permeating within the body, extending upwards to the crown within, pervasively, and just gently coming down the body to the feet. And then the breath and the colour and light are all as one. And imagine that light and the colour and the breath are more vivid, more brilliant, and filling your entire body with peace. Filling every cell in your body, the calmness and peace. And the source of that colour, peace, the breath, flows freely. It never has to be asked to breathe. It just does. It's always there. It's a part of you. So allow the breath and its colour and light to fill your body, strength, calm, and awareness and a love within. You feel from your heart the strength of the breath and the light, the brilliance, the power within your heart. And that love is just not a word, but a feeling. And that love grows in intensity, more vivid. And it extends out now beyond your body to the space around you. And the light is so strong. Imagine looking at your hand and seeing light all around it. That is the power of your love. Feel it within the heart as the source. Feel it in the heart as a companion with your breath. Be present in the now with you, love, strength, and compassion for yourself. You feel the compassion and the love in every cell, your hair, your hands, your eyes, your ears, your mouth, nostrils, skin, your organs, breath, your respiratory system, muscles, ligaments. Such strength in compassion. Such compassion in love. Such love in the breath. Just rest quietly now. Quietly for a moment or two. Allow your own intuition to guide you. So gently, gently release concentration for the time being. But the awareness, the experience, strength, the compassion, the love, understanding is drawn within your heart. So you may now release the concentration and return your awareness back to this room. It takes a while sometimes to integrate back into the room, and that's okay, because it means something's happening. So, a lot of neuroscientists are very interested in meditation, and His Holiness Dalai Lama is very supportive and has asked a number of his key monks or lamas to participate in research regarding meditation. So neuroscience is looking at what is it that's going on within the mind that's producing such changes. And they're finding remarkable things, because at one level, the monks in the monasteries in India are learning about meditation, they're learning about the Buddhist philosophy, but not really knowing what was going on in their mind. So there is now a university where a lot of the monks are going to visit to learn the neuroscience of meditation and the Buddhist teaching, so they can incorporate it in their curriculum as well. Because monks go through a very rigid training program, and His Holiness Dalai Lama wants that neuroscience to be part of their training. So if we look at the mind, the brain, we'll start with the brain, because we know that mind is just not limited to the brain, it's a whole consciousness. And that consciousness can be as small as you want it to be, or need it to be, or as vast and pervasive as it can be. There's a teacher that was an interpreter for His Holiness Dalai Lama that now teaches around the world. His name is Alan B. Wallace. He said that the mind, the consciousness, if you look at a star in the night sky, he said that's how far your consciousness goes. That's a lot to take into and to consider. But the possibility of that is just amazing. Absolutely amazing. So the brain, if you look at the brain, imagine that's the front of the brain, and this is the brain stem here. There's a thing called an amygdala, which is in the middle of the brain. And it's the amygdala that is the one that's more primal. It has the one that expresses emotions. It has maintains a lot of our feelings, and also can cause depression, anxiety. And what they're discovering is that the monks who meditate and those that participate in that type of research find that the amygdala, first of all, that the prefrontal cortex, which is the grey matter, is the one that's actually developing more and more grain matter as we meditate. So we're doing something physically different to our brains as well. You're not going to have a protruding forehead. It's just the grey matter and all the neuro cells are just constantly more working and grow. And in that prefrontal cortex is the executive function. And the executive function is exactly what it is. It actually governs our behaviour, and it is problem solving. It's fast moving problem solving. It governs our emotions, our appetite. It looks at memory and how we learn, and in particular problem solving. So problem solving can also take the form of when the amygdala, when you see something and it really is painful and it really upsets you that you want to say something, but it's coming from a defense mechanism rather than simply righting a wrong, the amygdala starts to react, and emotions come. So at one point you're looking at it from a logical and problem-solving point of view. You've spotted the fact that this thing has happened, but the emotion is a bit too strong at the moment. What happens is that the emotions rise up on the prefrontal cortex, which where the executive function is, and the prefrontal cortex will say, hey, not appropriate, workplace rules, shouldn't say this, and therefore it's spontaneous and fast, and that emotion won't allow to express itself. So the prefrontal cortex will be like a decision maker as to what you say and what you don't say, and what you still have the feeling. Nothing will stop you to a certain point of having that reaction, but you can make a decision not to express it. And when people do react and express their emotion, you don't have that barrier of that executive function that says, oh, not today, not now, not good, but park it for later. So that executive function is extremely important. And that's what the neuroscientists are discovering more and more of the monks from the Buddhist monasteries are allowing themselves to have all the Ys and enter MRIs and being tested. The empathy is also in the front part of the brain as well. So moving on from that, what they're also discovering when you look at the reason why we may react, and actually the original question is that in compassion, or in the first noble truth, the Buddha taught 4 noble truths. True suffering, the true sources of suffering, true cessation of all suffering, and the true path. When in the later series, when we look at compassion, what can happen in compassion is that compassion may turn into empathy. And when we are empathetic, empathy is an incredibly useful and highly needed behavior and heart in this society today. Empathy means that you've thought about the person's suffering, you've taken it on. You know to a degree what that person is feeling. You sit with them. You don't run away from anyone that's experiencing pain, but you sit with them. And by sitting with them and being patient, just being present, you can be of enormous benefit for that person. You're not running away. So you're actually helping them heal. But in that process, empathy, you do at times take on whatever they're feeling within you. And there is a danger in many ways. Scenario number 1, where, for example, you go and your friend has experienced an injustice through the government department or otherwise. You're very close to them and you may say, I'm going to fix this. Leave it with me. You get so upset about the fact that this has happened to them that you have this altruistic view, I'm going to fix it for you. So you carry it with you. Part of that I'm going to fix it with you is that you carry that pain within you as a reminder of what you're doing. And then you pick up the phone and you may yell at somebody as a result of it, because unknowingly the pain of that person has now transferred into you. And if you cannot fix the problem, you're stuck with this pain. So now it becomes about you and this pain. The person that you are caring for is somewhere in the distance. That's about you. So you now are experiencing a thing called empathetic distress. You have to do something about this. And that's when your behavior can be deleterious to society and often. We see it often in hospitals where a patient has got pain and the doctors prescribe pain management with the explicit knowledge and understanding that too much pain management can cause an addiction. So they're trying to balance the pain with the pain management, the person, and they also may even put consultations to have a person specializing in pain management to help the person, because too many painkillers will cause an addiction, and it may impact other organs in the body. So that all is taking place. The nurses interact with the patient, the doctors interact with the patient. A relative comes in, son or daughter or spouse or friend, and the person's in pain. and you see that they're in pain, and the way that they behave determines on your response. So if they say, it's okay, I'm in a bit of pain, it's all right, then you're more settled. But if they're moaning and groaning and saying, I'm in pain, no one's giving me any pain medication, then you will naturally have this emotional response. And what we see time and time again is that the relative will come out, search for the nurse, and say, why haven't you given blah, blah, pain management? Or they want more pain management. So what has occurred there is that they've taken on the pain, they now have gone to see somebody about it, and naturally the responses are that from anyone in the medical profession is that the right amount of painkillers has been prescribed. So the original intention of getting more painkillers for the relative, the patient, is now not being completed. So you've got that stress and empathetic distress within you, and it's pretty much unknown. There's a researcher called Tanya Singer, and she's a neuroscientist and a psychologist from Germany, and she's doing a groundbreaking research in empathetic distress, and is using a lot of the Buddhist monks to help them understand why empathy can turn into empathetic distress. And she's quite good in her understanding of the two. So in Buddhism, empathy is what triggers or manifests or transforms into compassion. So empathy is understanding, you feel their pain as best as you can, and then it transforms into compassion. And compassion is wishing to remove the suffering of another. Cancer patients don't want empathy. They don't want sympathy. What they want is compassion, for someone to help them reduce their pain, to someone that can help them live longer, from someone to help them have a better quality of life, and for someone to help them remove whatever cancer's in them. So that's compassion, wishing to remove the person's suffering. And if we're not careful, we can be stuck in empathetic distress. So all that, you can imagine then, the Buddha, when he reached enlightenment, didn't want to teach. Didn't know. People are not going to understand. So he just didn't want to teach. So it was somebody, Brahma, convinced him to teach. And the reason why he didn't want to teach is not because of the peacefulness and the knowledge and the Four Noble Truths, everything that he discovered, is because he discovered the ultimate completion or achievement of enlightenment. He not only removed all the obstructions to his own personal liberation, but he removed all the obstructions to omniscience. And the omniscient mind cannot be described in human terms. Cannot. At best, we can look at the things that it can achieve. So have you ever had a time yourself where you've experienced something, learned something, but you just thought others wouldn't understand? It's a bit like that. So he finally was convinced to teach, and he taught in various paths. But the most important one is the Four Noble Truths, because that sets the wheels in motion. That's a game changer for people to really understand that there are causes to suffering, and that suffering can stop can cease, and that there is a clear path for that. So he said, whatever has had to be done by a teacher out of compassion for the welfare of his disciples, I have done for you, the Buddha said. But he also said, scholar bhikkhu, as gold is heated, cut and rubbed, practice properly, analyze my words, but not because of respect. So saying that this is what I've learnt. This is the structure of what I've learnt. These are the paths that you follow, that you can follow based on your personality, your character, your ability, your external environment. These are the things. But just don't believe me because you admire the Buddha. No. In Buddhism, you are encouraged to take ownership of your own learning, of your own practice, and to disregard what you don't want or need at the moment. There's nothing that forces you to take on any of the Buddhist teachings. In Buddhist families, Buddhist children are not forced to be Buddhist practitioners. A lot of the immigrants, say Sri Lankan community, or Chinese or Vietnamese, some of the children of Buddhist parents are practicing Christianity. Because Buddhism isn't about forcing somebody, it's about allowing people to find their own way and to be kind to them regardless of what they do, what they say, what they think, what they want to do with their life. Who are we to judge that way? That is not kindness to judge people accordingly. Someone may be different in lifestyle. Somebody may be different in the way they behave, in the language that they speak and what they eat. But everything that we see out there is a reflection of you. Everything. So if you see something, you can analyze it, but don't make it a part of you. So let's get back to the question now. In this world, we see much pain and suffering. Can one be happy every day? Well, looking at the Four Noble Truths, this is the analysis of the question. It's a beautiful question and one that always comes to mind when you're studying and understanding the first noble truth of suffering. So like a little banner hanging there, the first noble truth is that suffering exists. And you understand that suffering. The second noble truth is that you find the causes of that suffering, followed by the third noble truth of true sensation, and the fourth noble truth is the way to get there. How do you get to having no more suffering in your life and bringing much happiness to yourself and others? The question comes and may come from the first noble truth only without considering the other paths. That's a conclusion through some analysis. So they've asked that question, how can I be happy when other people are suffering like this? It's a beautiful question, a transformative question. But you can be happy. It doesn't mean that you forget all the suffering. When you progress through the paths, the Four Noble Truths, you never, ever forget the suffering. And some Buddhist practitioners always remind themselves of who and what and why they are practicing, why they endure hours and hours of practice, hours and hours of meditation, not for them, but for others. So you can attain a peaceful existence, a productive one that makes yourself and others happy still holding that others are suffering. So whatever you're doing now is to help yourself and others. So you will know by training that at some future time you will be able to help reduce the suffering in this world. So the question comes from the first noble truth and denying one's happiness, which can be empathetic distress in some way. Well, everyone's suffering. I can't really suffer. I can't really be happy. And there is a beautiful Jewish saying which says, a mother can only be as happy as her saddest child. And compassion is a bit like that. But by you being unhappy, by you being sad, by you having anxiety and stress, by you depriving yourself of any happiness, you are adding to the suffering of this world. So it's up to you to feel okay and be happy when you can. Enjoy what you've got, your job, your acquisitions, your friends, your family, theatre, dining at restaurants. But you can be doing it with a mindful purpose of saying, this is what it's like to be happy. I'm going to cultivate this happiness to help others as well. So what was His Holiness's response? The final drum roll. So His Holiness said this through an interpreter. I'm going to read it because it's the pure words of His Holiness. So the question was, we see in this world so much pain and suffering. Can one be happy every day? His Holiness, yes, it is possible through training of the mind. We take happiness to be some sensorial gratification from external things. We can still have happiness and joy through faith. When you have single-pointed faith and belief in God or some deities and Buddhas and so forth, you will still have this satisfaction. Similar to theistic religion, but similar to Buddhist practice of faith that you can develop from within. Therefore, you need to use one's wisdom and intelligence towards faith and train your mind. And through this combination of wisdom and faith, when you have joy and stable satisfaction, so it will not be disturbed even if there are bad things going on around you within the external world and around you. So that in a nutshell describes, yes, you have a right to be happy, but that happiness, we're also taught, is the things that we acquire is impermanent. So you can enjoy it in that moment. And the peace that we'll be talking about in the next 3 weeks is the peace deep within you. What the last meditation was attempting to reveal, that peace is deep within you when you cultivate it. So you see the suffering, and look, everyone I know has cried when they heard about the war in Ukraine. But, and it's very distressing to look at. It can actually form into empathetic distress. How can you stop it? It is a case where it's a form of hopelessness sometimes when you see the injustices around the world. But what it can do is turn it around. Say, okay, I'm going to take ownership. I'm going to really develop my mind. I'm going to really do the best I can to completely and eradicate all the delusions from my mind to attain enlightenment. Then you can truly help people. It's that. And in the meantime, you can skill up, go and help a particular cause, donate money. You can be lucky enough to go abroad and help. Or you'd be lucky enough to help here compassionately, helping the homeless, helping those who are sick, being present with someone who's suffering. Don't try and fix it for them, just be present. One of the military chaplains that was speaking on a religious program on ABC was saying that some of their work when they're abroad, that they found that if tragedy happens to a soldier, the family, the best thing they can do at times is just sit with the soldier. And a chaplain said that once she sat with a soldier who got devastating news back from home when he was abroad, she sat with him for 1.5 hours in silence. That's compassion. And that's intuition as well. What do they need? And then he spoke. Then he was able to express in words what he felt. This devastating news. And that's how we're all different. So looking at the time, we're nearly time's up. We didn't do the meditation as I'd hoped, the traditional Buddhist one, but we can do that next week because that's a really lovely meditation, because part of the Buddhist way of removing suffering is to develop purification techniques. And that purification, what it does is you get all these negative karmas that we built, or things, delusions, that as we purify more and more and more, we do mantras, we meditate, we're aware of it, our pure mind becomes you. And all those negativities will eventually subside. So that's the meditation. It's important because every time that we meditate, we acquire the mind with a virtuous object. In Buddhism, meditation is a virtuous object. It's a virtuous state of mind, a virtue, because it benefits yourself and it benefits others as well. So that's it for today, given the time, and we'll do the meditation, the purification meditation next week. But what you can do, people ask, what can you do when you're off the cushion or off the chair meditation? Just observe your mind, introspection and self-awareness. And one of the monks once asked us to keep a note of all the negative emotions that we have. And sort of what is the one that stands out the most? Just keep a little, like a pencil, and just tick a box and say which one, if you express the most, well, work on that the most. Just the one that you want to change. There are others that you don't want to change, and that's fine. So I thank you for your time. I thank all the previous teachers who have created such a wonderful opportunity to bring more happiness in this world. Teachers like His Holiness and all the lamas, who even in his answer integrates all religions and enhances faiths in people in various paths. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence. I truly wish from the depths of my heart that each and every one of you has true and lasting happiness and peace, resilience and strength. You are wonderful. And to all the online people, You are terrific too. Thanks for joining us. So that's it. That's a wrap, guys. We'll see you next week. Thank you. See my timer? The old-fashioned way. No battery.